All right, well, welcome everybody. My name's Denis. For those of you that haven't been here before, you're most welcome. This is a very informal night. We're going to talk about some introductory Buddhist ideas and also do a short meditation, well, probably a 15-minute or 20-minute meditation together on the Buddha meditation. So it's something that you can do at home in your leisure and think about it. And so this is the third night of giving a talk about the precious human rebirth. So if you haven't heard much about that before, I'd really recommend this book to you by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who's one of the renowned teachers of Tibetan Buddhism in the West. Don't be like me. I've got so many books. I've got so many books in my bookcase which are just amazing, and I look at them and I think, oh, wonderful. And a new book comes out, I have to buy it. But this has sat in my bookcase for, I don't know, 5 years, and I've not read it. And, you know, I was inspired by it. It's just wonderful. So the main thing is, the topic being the precious human rebirth, it's really important to take your time to investigate that, to think about that, because if you have something that's really precious, then you're going to want to utilise it as much as possible. And in the bigger picture, you know, if we do have something really precious, then we won't have it forever. You know, this life is impermanent and it will finish. So while we're alive, if we have a rich and incredible opportunity, we should really try and make the most of that. And, you know, one of the comparisons that Lama Zopa gives in this particular book, and also he's taught this many times, you know, there's meant to be there's talk of a mythical jewel called a wish-fulfilling jewel. And, you know, it's very attractive. A lot of people buy Tats Lotto. They want to win $1 million. Well, you need more than $1 million these days, but you want to win lots of money. You can buy the house you want. You can go wherever you want. It seems like the solution to all the problems. And a wish-fulfilling jewel, you know, I don't know if it's real or it's just an analogy, but, you know, it is spoken about in the text that it's a jewel at the bottom of the ocean, and if you're able to go to it and you're able to rub it and do certain things to it, you know, you have to be an advanced being to be able to obtain such a jewel. But if you do, then this wish-fulfilling jewel can fulfill every wish that you might have in this life. So if you can imagine how that would be, you know, to own such a jewel, like I Dream a Genie. I don't know if you've watched that show. I love that show. I grew up watching that. But, you know, you could have anything you wanted. Then you would think, my God, that would be wonderful. Much better than Tats Lotto. I can just think about what I want and you have it. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche says that this very precious human rebirth is more precious than countless skies full of the wish-fulfilling jewels. Because, you know, if something can fulfill our wishes and our dreams of this life, at the end of this life, we know we can't take anything with us. So its benefit is very limited, and it's arguable whether if we did fulfill our every wish, we would actually feel more peaceful and content. Perhaps we'd be more worried about things because there's more things to worry about. Or maybe we would have a sense of dissatisfaction that we were never able to fulfill that desire. So, you know, it's arguable about whether it could truly make this life content and happy. But certainly beyond this life, it is of no value whatsoever. So in the bigger picture, Buddhism teaches us about life beyond this life and life before this life. So not just one life before this life, but countless lives before this life, and beyond this life, again, it's potentially countless lives of uncontrolled reincarnation into a new life that may not be the life that we want. You know, like when I was leaving tonight, I noticed that there was a bee on the footpath and it was being attacked by ants, and it was still alive. And, you know, I thought, what a horrible way to die. It was alive, the ants were gathering around, it would eat it. So this happened the other day with a worm. I was able to flick the worm, roll the worm, and eventually the ants came off. And I was able to, it was not long in the jaws of the ants. So it was fine. So I was able to put a bit of water on it and put it back in the garden. But for the bee, the ants had actually latched onto its feet. And even though I flicked the bee, there was nothing I could do about it. The bee was destined to be eaten alive by ants. Only reason I'm saying this is there are other types of life that Buddhism teaches that we can be born into, and many of them are characterised with great suffering, suffering that we would not want. So this human life has so many freedoms and opportunities that are not available in other realms, in the lower realms it's described, where there's no opportunity, no freedom. So I'm trying to just give a quick preview of a quick summary of what a precious human rebirth is. So it's characterised by having 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses. So when we have collected all of these 18 together in one life, then we have what is referred to as a precious human life, and one that is the perfect opportunity to focus inwardly and to develop ourselves inwardly with our boundless spiritual potential, because we can focus our whole life on our external world, gathering whatever we can, accumulating all the things around us, but it won't truly bring us inner satisfaction. The only way to truly gain that is looking inward and cultivating positive qualities within our mind, such as love and compassion and patience. These are the sort of the qualities that we all have, but they're often smothered with other destructive minds like anger or attachment or pride and arrogance and jealousy. These are referred to as the negative emotions or delusions, which are actually at the very root of causing us to have a lack of inner contentment and inner happiness. So the goal, the job of our precious human rebirth is to tackle these inner enemies that destroy our chance to experience happiness, long-lasting contentment. So I've already prepared what I wanted to talk about, and I haven't talked about any of that yet. So I tend to go off a little bit. But I'm going to go for about another 15 minutes, and then we'll do a meditation, and then there'll be an opportunity to have discussion. It's good to have discussion. I'd love to hear what doubts or what information you'd like me to expand on or anything. So feel free to bring that up. But I just wondered if anybody here came to Lama Osel's talk or to Osel's talk the other night. So, right, so there's a few of you that came. And, you know, that was it was a wonderful evening. Osel is the reincarnation of Lama Yeshe, which is in the picture here on the right-hand side. So Lama Yeshe brought Tibetan Buddhism to the West in the 1970s, the late mid-1970s, with he and Lama Zopa toured the world and inspired so many people through their teachings of the Buddha and how beneficial that can be to our lives. And they were perfect examples of the benefit that they had experienced. So for, well, I guess for only 10 short years, Lama Yeshe toured the world and, as I said, inspired so many people that there's now hundreds of centres similar to this one established throughout the world. And at each of those centres, if they're fortunate enough, they will have a resident Lama that comes and teaches. Like here at Tara Institute, we have Geshe Doga, who's been teaching here for over nearly 40 years. And he was a very close friend of Lama Yeshe, and he's a wonderful inspiration to us. Those of you who haven't met him, please try and find an opportunity to hear him teach, to meet him. He's a very inspiring, beautiful human being and a great Buddhist master. So, Lama Yeshe passed away in 1984, much to everybody's sadness. I think he was 49 at the time. And, you know, as is customary in certainly the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, I don't know if I say in the Buddhist tradition, but certainly the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, that when a high Lama dies, his students and followers, his closest followers, will seek to find his reincarnation. And so this is what happened. There was a search throughout the world. After a couple of years, there were some candidates that came up that potentially may be the reincarnation of Lama Yeshe. And eventually Lama Zopa, his closest disciple, went to Spain to visit the parents of a young boy who had been born. There is a book that talks all about the circumstances around the discovery of Lama Yeshe's reincarnation, which I haven't read, but I've heard a bit about it. But anyway, so the parents of this boy were students of Lama Yeshe, and because Lama Yeshe had established a centre in Spain. And these parents, what I heard, or I don't think I read, was that Lama Yeshe, while he was still alive, said to these parents, you know, we have big business together in the future. And it was only in recollection that those words were remembered. And so anyway, as it turned out, there was this small boy, and Lama Zopa came, there were indications. You know, we're talking about a higher spiritual being, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, clairvoyance, you know, perceptions, depths of perceptions that go beyond our ordinary perception. There were indications that suggested this child could be the reincarnation of Lama Yeshe. And more and more and more confidence grew of that. And eventually they took this child to the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who's in India, living in India now, and exiled from Tibet since 1959. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama is, you know, believed by many to be the embodiment of the Buddha of compassion. This is Chenrezig, the Buddha of compassion. The Buddha appearing in this aspect for the benefit of beings. And so anyway, we see His Holiness as a human being. Some beings can see His Holiness even in this aspect. I have heard some High Lamas have seen that. But anyway, they took Lama Osel to His Holiness, and he confirmed this is the reincarnation of Lama Yeshe. Yes, this child is. So it was celebrated. We've discovered Lama Yeshe's reincarnation. And his parents were happy for him to be taken to Sera Monastery in southern India, where he was ordained and lived as a Buddhist monk in the monastery for, I don't know the detail, I think something like 14 years or 15 years. I'm not sure of the detail of that, but eventually Lama Osel, mentioned that this wasn't what he wanted. That sort of life wasn't how he thought he could benefit people in the best way. So he decided to disrobe, and anyway, to cut the story short, he's married, he has a child, he lives in Spain, he tours it throughout the world. He was recently up at Bendigo in a teacher centre for the first time, not the first time to a teacher centre, but the first time to give a teaching there over 4 days. And so on the last day, I think it was, he was invited to come here to Tara Institute. And so last Thursday, he sat here and he gave us a talk for well over an hour. I found that very inspiring and so full of information that I can apply to myself, what I need to do, what I don't do. It was pretty well an open talk. Osel doesn't like to be called Lama Osel. He has no airs and graces about him at all. He completely wants to be accessible and approachable to people. He spoke about the benefit of patience, and he also spoke about the benefit of humility. And I wanted to just say, well, actually, yes. And also, he touched on at the end of that talk about the rarity of this precious human rebirth. So I wanted to just recap on that particular point, where he used an analogy to demonstrate the rarity of obtaining a precious human rebirth, which I mentioned last week, but I'll say it again, which was about the turtle. Now, this is a story that the Buddha gave to his students about just how difficult it is to obtain a precious human rebirth. And sorry for those that are new here, a precious human rebirth doesn't mean a human rebirth. There's 8 billion human beings on this earth. That doesn't mean we've got 8 billion people with a precious human rebirth. It's very specific conditions that all have to come together where, one, you have an open mind, you have faith, you have met the teachings of the Buddha, you have faith in the Buddha's teachings, you want to follow them, you have, they say that one of the other richnesses is that you have all your faculties, you have intelligence, you're able to learn. So all of these conditions coming together are very rare. So the example the Buddha gave at the time of how rare it is to obtain a precious human rebirth, qualified with the 8 freedoms and the 10 richnesses, is the example of the turtle. So if you can imagine a blind turtle that lives in a vast ocean, lives on the bottom of the ocean, and on the surface of the ocean, it's very turbulent. There are waves everywhere, the wind's blowing, and on the surface there's a small golden ring, and that's blown in all the directions by the wind. And the golden ring actually is said to represent the time when the Buddha's teachings are actually present, because the Buddha's teachings are not always present. They're extremely rare in the big picture. In the universe picture, the time when the Buddha's teachings are actually present is extremely rare. So that's the symbol of the golden ring. So once every 100 years, the turtle comes up to the surface and sticks its neck through the surface of the ocean, to the ocean surface. Just putting its head in the ocean's surface is symbolic of attaining a human rebirth, let alone a precious human rebirth. Simply a human rebirth. And what that unfortunately suggests is that the most of the time we don't have a human rebirth. And it's often described that our permanent address is in the lower realms, in the realms where opportunities do not arise in the animal realm and other realms of much suffering, which of course we can't see. We can see the animal realm, but the Buddha has described that there are other realms of existence, and we have had countless lives there. But the turtle popping its head through the surface is representative of a human rebirth. And then you've got the golden ring, and for the turtle to put its neck through the ring, that's an example of the precious human rebirth. So, extremely rare. And, you know, similar to a beggar who's always looking through the rubbish, looking for something precious. If he was to discover a diamond, he would be absolutely elated and delighted and jump with joy. So that's a similar thing that is a sign that if you have put effort in to recognising what opportunities that we do have, then that joy is an indication that you have realised just how precious the precious human rebirth is. So, going, okay. Osel also spoke about humility, and I just thought it was worthwhile saying a little bit about that, because, you know, Khensa Rinpoche, who taught in Adelaide for many years, who was the ex-abbot at Sarah Monastery, once explained that in Tibet they have an analogy of somebody that has pride or arrogance. When I say pride, I mean an arrogant type of pride, not pride in yourself and your appearance, but like an arrogant sort of pride. I'm much better than this person and that person. Somebody that has pride, has such arrogance, is like a tall tree, a tall, narrow tree that has no fruit. It's up there high, it wants to be seen, but it actually has no fruit. Whereas somebody that has humility is like a tree laden with fruit and its branches are just hanging low. And, you know, I've got a peach tree in the backyard, and that I noticed that. There's a branch at the bottom and it's just leaning down like this, and there's lots of these beautiful peaches on there. And it just reminded me straight away of the analogy of humility. Because humility is such a wonderful quality that I see so much in the teachers that I've been very fortunate to study with. You know, with Geshe Doga and His Holiness. I've attended a number of teachings from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. You know, known throughout the world, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, the, you know, just the example of such kindness and compassion. There's no arrogance or anything. There's just total humility. So it was interesting that Osel mentioned so much about that. And at the same time, I think I've mentioned a few times, we need to be on guard. You know, we need to use our intelligence and our wisdom to check out what we hear, who we're hearing it from, what teachings we're hearing of the Buddha. Are they real? Are they meaningful to us? You know, and only if they're meaningful to us, after we've done our examination, should we adopt it. Otherwise, we might be led along the wrong path. You know, it can happen. People are vulnerable and want to put their trust in others, but they need to always have their sense of discrimination and checking up. It's really important. So that's what I thought of when I mentioned if you recognise somebody who is a proclaimed teacher and doesn't demonstrate humility, then I would be a little bit guarded about that. I'd be thinking, is this a real teacher, or is this somebody which has ulterior motives, maybe looking for a reputation, or who knows. Anyway. So the whole Buddhist path is an inner path. We're here to develop our inner potential. We're here to remove inner obstacles and cultivate the virtuous qualities that will bring us closer to enlightenment. So we need a tool to be able to access our inner world. And that tool is through meditation. And meditation in Tibetan is the word gom, and it means to make familiar. So what we're doing is we're focusing our attention inwardly, and we're making our mind familiar with the positive states of mind that we want to develop further. And through familiarity and regularity, the habits of those positive minds can grow. And through reflecting on the destructive nature of negative emotions such as anger and hatred and jealousy and pride, competitiveness, by reflecting on the destructive nature of these things through our meditation, first of all thinking about it, and then with our meditation focusing on that, trying to habituate that understanding, it can lessen the negative emotions and strengthen the development of the positive emotions that we want to develop. So we do that through meditation. Meditation doesn't have to be necessarily sitting on a cushion, with a straight back. You can be doing meditation on the train going to work. You can do it driving the car. It's a matter of becoming familiar with ways of thinking. So if you can habituate your thinking on the disadvantages of anger and how it's destructive to not just my peace of mind, but to the peace of mind of the person that you're angry towards, then you can do that while you're engaging in any other activity. But then when you actually, come and sit and do formal meditation, it can deepen that understanding. So I'm just trying not to restrict meditation to mean you can only do that when you're sitting on a cushion. And, it's said that when we have abandoned all of our negativities and all of our faults, inner faults, and accumulated all of our virtues to its highest potential, then that is what the state of enlightenment is. Not a simple state, not an easy state to achieve, one that will take lifetime after lifetime of continual habituation with the qualities, the positive qualities that we want to develop and those we want to abandon. It's lifetime after lifetime. So if we achieve nothing more with our life, we want to ensure that at least in our next life, which is only years away, death is coming. There's no question about that. No one can deny that. And we're not sure when that's going to happen. I'm not saying this is a depressing thing, but more as a reminder of the reality. Then we want to ensure that our next life is a precious human life, precious human rebirth, again, where we have the opportunity to continue with our practice. And then the lifetime after that, and then the lifetime after that. And that eventually we're able to achieve that complete state of enlightenment. So we need to protect our future. And how do we ensure a precious human rebirth in our next life? Well, the primary cause is the practice of morality. So, what does morality mean? Morality means abstaining from harming others. And so, what can we take away, in our life to ensure we're practicing morality? So it's said that there are 10 non-virtues of body, speech and mind. So 3 are of body. Killing, and that's sort of, obviously we're not killing human beings or killing animals or not killing insects if we can avoid. Should definitely not try to intentionally kill insects. So it's abandon killing, abandon stealing. Geshe Doga has mentioned these 10 non-virtues to us in the past, in some of his teachings. There's no reason why we can't practice this. We can stop. We don't need to steal. We've got plenty, and we should abandon stealing completely. Sexual misconduct. So the context of sexual misconduct really is, interfering in somebody else's relationship and having an affair with somebody else. That's the main context of sexual misconduct. Very destructive. We can see that. We know that in people we know, and we've seen that around us. Very destructive. And then there's 4 non-virtues of speech that we should abandon. Lying. Lying is deceitful. It leads to people not trusting you. It has consequences in your next life. People may not trust you or value anything that you say if you've lied. So we want to abandon lying. We want to abandon harsh speech. Nobody likes to be shouted at or to be called names or to be spoken to hatefully. So we need to abandon harsh speech. Talk kindly. We need to abandon divisive speech. So this is a very important one, because we don't want to have a conversation with somebody talking about somebody else to damage their relationship. You imagine if you had a conversation with somebody and it broke their relationship with their parents, or with your particular Buddhist teacher. That's a very destructive conversation. So rather than divisive talking, we want to encourage bringing together. So that's divisive speech. And the last of the non-virtues of speech is idle gossip. So there's nothing actually harmful within idle gossip in itself, except that the main shortcoming of that's described is that we waste a lot of our time in idle gossip. Or did you hear about this, or did you hear about that? And we can waste our whole life engaging and listening and being involved in idle gossip. So there are 4 of the non-virtues of speech. The last 3 are the hardest, which are the 3 non-virtues of mind, which is hatred or anger. So we need to challenge that. We need to try and apply the antidote of patience whenever hatred or anger comes. So we need to try and lessen that as much as possible. We can't uproot it it can be uprooted. Ultimately, these 3 can be uprooted, but that's a long, long process to do that. But we can certainly weaken their dominance in our life. And the other one is attachment. Attachment adds extra value onto things that we have to have, or people, relationships that we have to have, and adds on extra value. And when you lose that, it causes great heartache. If somebody threatens that, it can result in anger. So attachment actually is one of the ones that dominates our life most, the influence of attachment. It could come down to seeking a reputation, or that all comes through attachment. And then the last one is called wrong views. So this is the view that denies that there is a consequence of actions. So the law of karma, or the law of cause and effect, says that every action has a reaction. There's a consequence of our actions. So if we're to deny that, then you can see how that can open up a lot of, reckless behaviour. Because you think, well, no, why should I worry about that? There's no consequence. So that's a wrong view. And similarly, from the Buddhist context, not believing that the Buddha was real, not believing that there is a path that we can follow to achieve enlightenment, to fully develop our potential, not believing that. Also the other one that's mentioned is not believing that there are future lives. Of course, it's completely up to the individual what they want to believe, but from the Buddhist perspective, there are future lives. There is a life beyond this one, and as Geshe Doga says, it's either in the upper realm or in the lower realm, our immediate next life. So, it's which way we're going to go. It's dependent on our behaviour, on our actions. So that's what wrong view is all about. So living a life of morality where we are trying to observe, abstaining from those non-virtuous actions, places very positive imprints in our mind stream to, very positive imprints. So at the time of death, these imprints, the strongest imprints that we have engaged in throughout our life, are what manifest most at death. And that will determine that our next life will be as a human with that morality. The other particular cause that's mentioned, because we're talking about a precious human rebirth, is the practice of generosity. So we need to practice generosity throughout our life to ensure that we have resources in our next life. I'm talking way too much because we need to do a meditation, but I have to keep just going a little bit further. Tutu Donyu, who used to live here, was a wonderful monk, and he looked after Geshe Doga for years, and he's now established a centre in America. And I just saw on Facebook today, he's travelling through India, bringing blankets to the poor and the needy in India, and showing all these young children. None of them have got shoes, and he said, I'll be coming back here again bringing shoes. And he's also, previously, he was able to get glasses, the 3 different sizes, standard sizes from Taiwan. He's taken thousands of glasses to India. So apart from being an incredibly generous and kind person, there are so many people without resources. They don't have all the things that we take for granted in their life. So generosity is said to be one of the causes for having resources in your next life. So morality, generosity, and stainless prayer is said to be the third essential condition if you want to have a precious human rebirth in your next life. You need to pray. I pray that in my next life I will have the conditions to be able to continue to practice the spiritual path. I pray that I will be able to meet with kind teachers who are able to guide me with the pure teaching of the Buddha, authentic teachings. So those 3 combinations are explained as the causes of a precious human rebirth. So you can see it on the flip side. We did incredible work in our past life. We did incredible work in numerous past lives for all the conditions to come together for us that we have right now. And if we recognise that, then we can really take advantage of the opportunity. We have teachers here that have inner realisations of what the Buddha really taught. They have the same realisations of the Buddha, and they are teaching us now. So, we're really very fortunate. So let's do a meditation then. So if everybody, if you just sit comfortably, and if you can, you sit with your legs crossed, otherwise sit comfortably on your chair. And probably the most important thing is to have a straight back, if you can. Most importantly, it's being comfortable, but then within being comfortable, try and have a straight back, because the energy channels within the body are said to run parallel with the spine. So if your back's straight, then those energy channels are straight, and the mind can focus more effectively. And then with your right hand resting on your left hand, thumbs together, pointing towards your navel and resting on your lap. The other part of the meditation posture is to just have your arms slightly away from the body to encourage circulation, air circulation. And your head should be tilted slightly forward. Your tongue resting against the palate. And your teeth not just with a relaxed jaw. And sometimes it's recommended to have your eyes looking along the line of the nose, like not focusing at the tip of the nostrils, but looking along that line. Or if you prefer, you can have your eyes completely closed, but just be a bit more vigilant not to feel sleepy. So sitting in this comfortable meditation posture, I'm just going to do a few rounds of breathing meditation to start with. So we'll focus on the sensation as the breath passes the nostrils, and each inhalation and exhalation will count as one. So we'll repeat that 7 times, just focusing on the breath and that sensation as the air passes the nostrils. If your mind wanders off, don't be concerned. Just gently bring it back to focusing on the breath. So we'll do another 7 rounds. So this time we'll do another 7 breaths, but as we breathe in through the nostrils, imagine white, radiant light, purifying light, comes in through our nostrils and completely fills our body, releases all anxiety, all concerns, and leaves our body in the form of our nostrils, in the form of black light, leaving us feeling very peaceful and calm after each breath. Think of the light as being the blessings of the Buddhas, completely filling you, purifying you. And as you breathe out, every concern, every tension, every negativity, every unhappiness, all completely leaves in the form of black light. So now we're going to do a bit of a visualization meditation. So visualize either above your crown or in the space in front of you, about a body length away at the eye level, a large golden throne. And this golden throne is supported by 4 pairs of snow lions. And the throne has strings of pearls and jewels. Upon this throne is a white lotus. Upon this lotus is a flat, white, round moon disk. And resting upon that is another flat, round sun disk. Upon this sits Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, golden in colour, blazing with light, adorned with all the major and minor marks of a Buddha, wearing the saffron robes of a monk. His right hand rests on his right knee in the earth-touching mudra. His left hand cradles a begging bowl filled with nectar to the brim. Feel that light blazing in all the directions. It brings relief to all pain and suffering wherever it exists. And it reaches all beings of the 10 directions. You can see the Buddha is smiling, looking at you. The Buddha wants to guide you. The Buddha wants to bring peace and happiness within you. So make your heartfelt request. Please, Buddha, please guide me and all sentient beings. Please guide us all to find true inner, lasting happiness and peace. And this light blazes and in all directions, comes to your crown, enters into you and fills your body with this blissful light. You're completely blessed. All diseases are gone. All sorrow and depression and frustration, all gone. And you're filled with joy. And then imagine that the Buddha actually comes towards you, sits on your crown, dissolves into light, and then dissolves into you. Feel that you and the Buddha have become one. And because we all hold the seed of enlightenment, we all hold the potential, the Buddha nature, imagine that we then suddenly appear in the form of Shakyamuni Buddha ourselves. We are seated on a lotus, moon and sun disk. Our right hand resting on our knee, our left hand holding a begging bowl filled with nectar. And imagine that from our heart, light rays radiate in all directions and purify all those beings around us, those closest to us, those that we don't know, those that we don't like, all beings in all realms, every animal, every human, every other being that exists. They are all touched by the light blazing from you. They are completely purified. They too achieve their ultimate potential and achieve ultimate peace. So, all right, so we should finish with that and just rejoice that we've imagined that how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could be free of all sorrow, of all unhappiness, and achieve ultimate long-lasting peace. Isn't that nice to imagine? So we can do that meditation whenever we like. This one, I've just mentioned it briefly because there is a more detailed meditation of that, where it's combined with saying the Buddha mantra, the mantra that invokes the blessings of the Buddha as the light comes into you. And then when you've arisen as the Buddha, there's another part where you visualise a moon disk at your heart and a syllable hum, a blue syllable hum, surrounded by the Buddha mantra, and that's from where the light radiates out. So that I did want to have copies of that available for tonight, but just wasn't able to get it together. Sorry. So we've got 5 minutes to go. Is there anybody want to ask anything, or not much time left? Yes. Oh. Oh.
People are interested in Osel's talk.
Oh.
It is actually on YouTube, not the Tara Institute YouTube, but if you Google Osel Hita Tara Institute YouTube, it's on the Clear Light website, so people can listen to Osel's talk that was given here at Tara Institute.
Great reminder. Thank you.
So it's actually available for anyone who wasn't able to.
Is it on? Can they Google the Tara Institute website and see it, or no?
I don't think so. It's on the Clear Light website.
Oh, okay.
So
So,
if you just Google Osel Hita Tara Institute, it will come up. YouTube, it will come up that it's on the Clear Light.
right.
Just for anyone who
Okay.
who's,
Good.
How do you spell those?
I did and then obviously into the
Sorry, say that again.
How do you spell the name?
So, Osel, O-S-E-L. Do you think it would get away with just Osel space Tara Institute? No.
Hita, H-I-T-A, Osel Hita. So Tenzin, T-E-N-Z-Z-I-N, Tenzin, Osel, O-S-E-L, Hita, H-I-T.
That's hard. That's.
Don't know that anymore.
But if you just Google Osel just on its own, you'll get lots of hits of Lama Osel, lots of pictures of him. I've liked his Facebook, so I'm getting regular, snippets of what he's doing in his life. This was the first time that I'd heard him as an adult, but the last time he was here was in that photo there, on that far corner, where he was actually riding his tricycle around this throne. And I think he was 4 or 5 years old at that time.
It's also interviewed with him when he was so small.
Yes.
Yeah.
So any other questions, or? We all know what a precious human rebirth is? Yes?
When you speak about killing and animals and things like that,
Yeah.
does that mean that it's Buddhist to say that we shouldn't be killing animals to eat them?
Look, that's such a good question, because I've got 2 children, both vegetarian, and I have been grilled on a number of times because I still eat meat. And they'll say, well, there's supply and demand there, and I can't deny that. I'm one of the members of society that goes into Safeway to buy meat that would only be there because the demand is there. So at the same time, my response is that I will never ask anybody to kill anything for me, even though I know that there is the indirect line that you're suggesting. In the teachings, it's specifically said if you are invited to dinner at somebody's house and you know that they may have, it's more likely from fishing. The next door neighbour's just gone out fishing. Come for dinner, I've caught all these fish. I won't eat them because I know that they've been caught specifically for me to consume. But I go to the fish and chip shop. So there's a little bit of a contradiction there.
Because I've followed Buddhism for a long time, and that's one thing that I've found really hard to understand, I guess, as someone who deals with, so I'm vegan, I don't eat animals.
Yeah.
And that's one contradiction that I've struggled to
Yeah.
understand within Buddhism.
Yeah.
Itself is that there's the teaching of not killing, yet a lot of Buddhist people, directly or indirectly, causing suffering.
Look, it's true. It's a very good thing to think about. In Tibet, they did eat meat, and I think they used to get someone else to do it. I don't know if they ate meat in the monastery, I'm not sure, but anyway, I won't go into that because I can't be sure of that. But Geshe Ngawandagi, who was a teacher of Geshe Doga's, wonderful Lama. A number of us here at Tara Institute knew him. He's passed away quite a number of years ago from New Zealand, and he's now been reincarnated and recognised as a young Tibetan man in India who I met. A number of us have met him. It's quite amazing, this connection, because when I first became involved in Buddhism, sorry, we're already going over time, in the 1980s, that's when I met these lamas, and they affected me greatly. And then they passed away. And I've gone to India and I've met their reincarnations. On the, I guess I have the faith that His Holiness the Dalai Lama recognises, true or not. But anyway, Geshe Ngawandagi in his book says that the karma of eating meat is not the karma of killing, but you will plant predispositions in your mind stream that in your next life you will like eating meat. So I can't actually argue against the supply and demand argument. But at the same time, well, I can't really, but at the same time I will not kill or demand anyone to kill. I know I am, indirectly, yeah. I live with it. Hi.
This guy last Thursday, what's his name again?
Sorry?
Osel was talking about question about the stress you get in your body when you eat an animal who is actually killed in stress.
Oh, yes.
So he actually said that's like eating wrong other things. It's the stress you get in your body, and you have to decide if you want that. So that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
I thought that's actually an interesting view as well.
Islam, isn't it?
Yeah, so I thought, well, I like that. That's not saying you don't like killing, but you're actually saying, do you want that stress in your body from the animal? I took that out of that.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that.
I was going to say, before coming to Buddhism, I was involved in the yoga tradition up in the southern vegan for many years. But when I came to Buddhism, one monk said to me, like when you eat a piece of meat, you're eating a very, very small portion of a very, very large animal. But if you eat a dozen oysters, you're eating a dozen sentient beings. And I never thought of it that way. So that was another way to think of it. But also, I remember Geshe Doris saying to us that at our level, that not killing means not killing another human. That's really the most, that's the, maybe the more manageable level for us. And the other thing is too, when we're vegetarian, so many more insects get killed for every salad and every harvested crop. So it's very difficult to live as a human and not have incidental killing.
True. Yeah. I was going to mention that one about the vegetables and the sprays that they must put on, and the transport. I mean, all the insects that get killed during the transport. So, yeah, they're not off the hook. Vegetarians are not off the hook for being involved in indirect.
It's very interesting.
It is.
From my perspective, because I know for me it came down to an energy thing. When I went vegan, it was out of compassion.
Yeah.
It was the main driver for me, but it was also out of the fact of not wanting to consume the energy of the misery of what preceded me in animal products.
That's really.
Most die
Yeah.
in misery. So it's sort of when you speak about misery for humans as well, and
Yeah.
the lower realms, and how we don't want to be part of that.
Yeah.
We're consuming it. And
Well,
that's what I've always found really hard.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so unless there's any other burning questions, we'll finish. But just one of the traditions that happens in Tibetan Buddhism, one of the important practices is dedication, doing a dedication. So before every action, before engaging in any discussions on important topics like the Buddha and the potential of achieving enlightenment, it's important to have a good motivation. And similarly, at the end of that, any merit or any goodness that might have been generated we dedicate that. So let's just think about, because we did a nice meditation all together just before, and so let's just bring to mind that, you know, may any benefit from that merit be dedicated to the peace and the harmony in the world, at the very least, which is so much needed at the moment. So let's just think about that just for a moment and just think, may that merit be a cause to bring peace and harmony in the world. All right, so I mentioned in previous weeks, but if anybody hasn't seen this before, come and take a photograph of it, and then you can have a look at it online and you can buy it. It's just a wonderful book. Well done.
I got it from the shop just before.
Good. All right, well, thanks everyone. Please stay for a cup of tea, and Merry Christmas to everybody. Enjoy your family. Have a great time.